I'm Mindy Peterson, and this is Enhance Life with Music, where we explore the ways music can make our lives better and spotlight the resources you can use to enhance your life with music. We're talking today about the science behind musical preferences, why we like the music we like. Dr. Nolan Gasser was a guest on this show way back in episode 67, discussing his best-selling book, Why You Like It: The Science and Culture of Musical Taste. That book has led to a PBS special that we'll be telling you about today called Why You Like It: Decoding Musical Taste. Dr. Gasser was the chief architect of Pandora's Music Genome Project. He's a professional performer and composer in multiple genres, including jazz, opera, musicals, film scores. His compositions have been performed in venues including Carnegie Hall, the Lincoln Center, and the Rose Bowl. He's a musicologist and was the subject of the documentary Musicology. In the tech world, Dr. Gasser co-founded Catch Data, a data company that combines human and artificial intelligence to quantify individual taste and works with major media players, including Meta, Paramount, and Comcast. His other music AI projects include a role as expert music consultant for Google DeepMind on their cutting-edge AI initiatives. I think we could have a podcast just on that tech component because that sounds fascinating. Welcome back to Enhance Life with Music, Nolan.
Thank you so much, Mindy. It's great to be back.
Well, tell us about this PBS show, Why You Like It: Decoding Musical Taste. I got to watch it, and it's definitely an interactive experience like nothing I've seen before. So explain it to listeners.
Yeah, well, certainly that interactive component was one of the big selling points for PBS, trying to kind of move the needle in the way that we watch, television. We always have at least two screens, right? We have the one we're watching and the one right next to us. And so why not make them kind of talk to each other a little bit
Sure.
during the show? Yeah, so this has been a really a rich, couple years of preparation to bring us to having this wonderful PBS show, which we've been thrilled about. We've had just great reception across the country, and it really is bringing my book, Why You Like It, kind of to life, but combining it with my other big passions as a composer and a performer. I have this amazing band of very mighty, which is the name of the band, performers who played with some of the greats, along with some great guest artists. And so to combine this explanation of musical taste with this live concert and this interactive element, it's a lot to put together, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is really amazing how the interactive app, obviously you're kind of on that while you're watching it, but then even on screen, there's interactive components to it with some animations. There's, like you said, there's the live concert that's integrated with what you're talking about. There's kind of pop-ups that explain more about what we're hearing. So really fascinating. And I want to talk some more about those components. But first, can you explain the story behind the program? What made you decide to create it?
Right, absolutely. Well, it's like so much in life, it's a bit of a circuitous path to get there. It was not like I woke up one morning and I said, I want to have a PBS show. uh, the real catalyst for it was actually my vision to put together an amazing band of great players and allow me a kind of a vehicle to, as a composer, to do what I like to do, which is to blend musical styles. I was, raised on rock and jazz. I'm a classical musician, with a PhD in musicology. I'm a classical composer, but I've also been very passionate about music from other parts of the world. It's something that I kind of gained working at Pandora, where we had to do a world music genome.
Mhm.
There really was this invitation to study music from, from Africa and from the Middle East and, all over the world. And so all these different styles that I fell in love with, to try to integrate them with the music that I grew up in, music that I'm enculturated, to use one of the terms that I talk about in the PBS show. In other words, music that I have is just part of my overall identity. I was raised in it. I don't need to think about it. But then to add that music that I'm just getting to know. So we recorded an album back in 2019, probably around the time that we met last time. And the album is called Border Crossing. And again, it features just amazing players. Tim Reese, who played with the Rolling Stones, saxophone for 25 years. Jamie Haddad, percussion with Paul Simon. Carlitos Del Puerto, who played with Chick Corea in the latter part of his life. So just these monster players, and I get to join them on stage as the pianist and composer, and got a great producer, Greg Field, to be our producer. Recorded at Capitol Records, and so we had this great album. And the question is, okay, now what? Uh, how do we get this album and how do we get this band, some exposure that we could go and tour, and do that in a constructive way? So that was the catalyst. Obviously, I had this book, and my passion is, what is musical taste? Where does it come from? What are the sources of it, from music and the brain and our culture and psychology? So you had these two different, sort of elements, this wonderful band and these songs and my passion for musical taste. And when I was speaking with my manager, Bob Murray, he said, well, let's approach PBS. Maybe we could do something with them, kind of combining that. And they really loved that idea.
Ah,
They loved the interdisciplinary element of combining music and science. Just a straightforward concert, they probably wouldn't have been that interested in. And maybe a pure science thing, maybe not, but they loved, going back and forth. They also loved the idea of this potential interactivity with an app, which we raised, giving everybody their own personalized playlist at
yeah. Who
the end.
came up with that idea?
Well, I did.
It's brilliant. I love it.
Well, thank you. So that's so we had the kind of the green light from them to put this together, and that was probably about a year and a quarter ago. So just was able to put all the pieces together. We assembled an amazing team, directors, animators. As you've seen, the show has some really creative animation that kind of supports, like when I'm talking about music and memory, or music in our culture that we grow up in, or music in our different personality types. The beautiful animation, sometimes, funny and cute, that accompanies that, I think brings it to life.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing is there is so much depth there in terms of information in the app for sure, but then also, with the show that you're watching visually, but you can sort of choose how deep you want to go with it. And as a musician, a music educator, as I was watching it, I was just sort of like getting giddy with the educational potential of it. Like, oh man, this would be so cool for students to watch, but it's something they could watch with their parents. Like, it would be fun for the whole family to watch. So it doesn't really matter what age you are, all ages could watch it. Did you have a certain demographic in mind in terms of like your audience that you created it for, whether it was school use, adults, kids, community ed? Like, who did you have in mind?
Well, it's a great question, and thank you for all that. The target audience, it was a PBS audience, right? That was we had to, and that was certainly a lot of the great feedback. I'm an academic, right? So it's easy for me to go very nerdy and very into to get very technical and use a lot of, 25-cent words. And so part of the process was to really, keep the essence, keep the main message, but to really put it in everyday language, to put it in relatively simple terms. And I think that is the goal, is that kids could watch it with their parents and their grandparents, right? So that it would really not be limited. You don't have to be a musician, certainly. In fact, you don't even really need to know any musical terms.
Yeah.
And so, that is the goal. I mean, if it gets picked up and used in an educational context, I love that. It certainly would be a wonderful goal. And as you say, the app, the main role of the app is to give you a very simple, intuitive, quick little questionnaire. So I talk about, music and anthropology and our origins with, music and how it creates social bonding and all that. And then I'll give you a simple question that relates to, what kind of music do you like that brings people together, right? So it's a multiple choice question. There are 8 sections, and so there are 8 questions. And by virtue of that, I was able to create an algorithm to create you your personalized playlist. But there's also parts in the app that go much deeper. There's something called deeper discovery, where you can obviously go in, and if you really want to go deep, you can get my book
Yeah.
and dive into the real nitty gritty.
Well, I do like how you can go as deep as you want in this, depending on your age, depending on your musical background. Like you said, if you are a musician or if you don't have any musical training, everybody can get something out of this. But then also, I'm just thinking about, if it's Friday night and you've had a rough week and you're watching this just to sort of chill at the end of a Friday night, you might just not have the energy to go deeper. I'm thinking about this, I guess, because last Friday night I went with some friends to a line dancing event, and I kind of had a different image in my mind of what this was going to be. And we got there and it was a lot of work mentally because you're learning all these choreographed moves. And I was like, oh man, it's Friday night. Like, I just don't have the mental energy for this. I just want to sit down and have it. We were at a brewery. I'm like, I just want to sit down and have a drink and catch up with my friends. So, if you're in that state, you can just watch this, answer a few questions on your app and get out of it what you're going to get out of it. But if you really have the energy and the interest and you want to learn more, there is so much in there. And then for the younger kids, like I said, there's the animations, there's the pop-ups that kind of talk a little bit more about fun facts about maybe the history of the song or some basics on really unique solo instruments that are being used in the songs, which was really fascinating. And then within that app, you can just go and go and go on deeper and deeper levels into more information on the history, the composer, the genre, so much. And one thing I'll say that I really appreciate, I was pleasantly surprised that you do not need to create an account. You do not need to generate a password. You don't have
Right.
to submit your contact information. You don't go on an email list where you start getting emails. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this still existed in this world. But that was really a pleasant surprise that it was so easy to access.
Well, that was certainly one of the, sort of requirements, is that we make it as easy as possible. We try to keep you in the app so you don't need to go outside of it. We are connected to Spotify because I created this huge, array of songs, this, huge library of almost 2,000 songs from which I draw on. How you answer the questions is how you get a very rich, very eclectic. I can only know so much about you from 8 multiple choice questions.
Yeah.
So I can't say that you're going to love every song, but in some ways, part of the goal of the show overall is to get you to think a little differently about the music that you listen to take away some of the barriers and the kind of limitations that we all put on ourselves based on our biases or our experiences, and to say, hey, you've got a very rich capability to love lots of different kinds of music. So based on your personality type and your cultural background, how you think about, rhythm or melody or emotion in music, here's a bunch of songs that you could potentially really love. So
And we should probably back up just a little and explain to listeners that as you're watching the show, there's these 8 questions that are very easy to answer based on what your personal preference is on what you're hearing or how you like to listen to music or what types of genres you like or rhythm, whatever the question is. And then at the end of the program, you're able to submit those answers and get a personalized Spotify playlist. So explain a little bit more about that.
Right. So again, so the show has these 8 sort of subdivisions. So we talk about music and rhythm, or music and entrainment, which is how we lock into a beat. And I kind of give, a little opening explanation with kind of cute animation and simple explanations of how the brain and the body work together for us to be able to find that beat. We take it for granted that we can keep a beat, but we're like the only species that can. So how cool is that, right?
Yeah.
And then a song, a very rhythmic song, right? So Jump in the Line, kind of a calypso classic. We perform that with Etienne Charles, or our wonderful guest vocalist. And then, so shortly after the song starts, a little pop up appears on your phone buzzes or whatever, and there's a simple multiple choice question like, how do you feel about rhythm? What kinds of rhythm do you like? Do you like it when rhythm kind of flows through your body? Do you like it rhythm when it makes you want to dance? Do you like rhythm that's kind of interesting and unpredictable? So simple, options, and you pick one, and then that's it. And then you listen to the song on the show, and then next thing I talk about is, music in the brain. And then there's a simple question about like what kind of memories appear, how does music interact with the way that you remember things. Do you remember particular events? Do you remember more emotions? you know, there's no wrong answer.
Uh-huh.
It's just how you think about these things. And so you go through all eight, and at the end it says, congratulations, you've got your playlist. And there's 30 different playlists based on, it's actually a crazy number. I've kind of forgotten it. It's like if you have eight questions and there's five potential answers per question, how many permutations are possible?
Yeah.
It's like 160,000. I mean, it's some,
Wow.
I don't remember. I should have looked it up. It's like a huge number. So I was able to work with AI, which I'm pretty good at, and to kind of create an algorithm that, based on how Mindy answers these eight questions, here's her. So she's an emotional resonator,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And gets this playlist of 100 songs. And then you can take the quiz again and get a different playlist, and you can share your playlist with your friend. So it's kind of a, somewhat cute way of creating interactivity, but it's also going to expose you to a ton of music, I guarantee you, that you've never heard before. A lot of music that you'll know, but you've never heard of a lot of the music, intentionally relatively obscure.
Sure.
Um, yeah,
And
so
I'll
that's
mention too that playlist that you get, it is in Spotify and it works just fine with the free Spotify account. So again, just very accessible, really easy to access all of this.
yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
I'm a big fan of earplugs, and I'm also a minimalist. So I was really intrigued to hear that Assistive Audio released a new pair of adjustable earplugs, one pair for multiple uses. A dial on the end allows you to choose the noise protection that's best for you, whether you're at a live music event, want focused study time, or a quiet commute. Each order of these adaptive earplugs includes 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, so you can experiment and find the size that works best for you. And they come with a fun and practical durable storage case. The earplugs are made from hypoallergenic medical grade silicone that is easy to clean and fully reusable. Check them out at Amazon. The link is in the show notes. One of my favorite ways to enhance my life with music is to play just for fun songs on the piano at the end of the day. My current favorites are ABBA songs and songs from the 80s, like We Are the World. With Sheet Music Direct, I can explore new music, track my favorites, play and download scores anytime from any device. This online treasure trove of digital sheet music is powered by music publisher Hal Leonard and has over 1 million arrangements, ready to view, listen to, and download instantly. Prices start at just 99 cents and include selections for every instrument, genre, and skill level. My family has relied on Sheet Music Direct for years for musical joy and convenience. For an entire musical library at your fingertips, visit sheetmusicdirect.com. And you mentioned some of the different segments that you cover: the brain, you cover physics, culture,
Yep.
psychology. So all of you music educators out there, whether it's private instructors, K through 12, college, I'm sure you're just like getting giddy like I did about just the educational aspects and incorporating things like STEAM, the science, technology, engineering, math, all of those components. This is a really great way to sort of bring all those into kind of a holistic educational experience for yourself, for students, and like we said, all ages. As I alluded to, there's that deeper discovery available for each of those topics in the app. So again, you can go deeper on anything that really catches your attention and you're like, ooh, wow, that's really cool. I like what you said earlier too about the global music and how that was kind of pulled in, multiple genres. Our world has gotten so much smaller with each year that goes by, especially exponentially since technology's exploded in the last 10 years or so. But we do have access to so many different cultural experiences, and so I do think that people are interested in learning more about global music. Everybody loves music, and if you have friends who are from different cultures, it's fun to get to know more about, say, music from India or music from China or, music from these different cultures. And then also it just expands our horizons with musical genres, and it helps introduce those genres to new audiences. So, really love that aspect of it. And anything interdisciplinary kinda lights me up too. I love hearing about that. Have you heard any specific feedback from participants in terms of if there's a certain demographic that this really is resonating with, whether it's the educator community or families or anything like that?
Well, I've gotten a ton of really wonderful feedback, and really across the board. Just gotten feedback that people who have no musical background were really appreciative that I was never lost.
Yeah.
It was very easy to follow. Thank you for making it understandable. But I have a lot of musician friends that really got into, if you are a musician, there's a lot to really sink your teeth into, not only in the app but in the show. Obviously, I'm touching on at a very kind of relatively introductory level these big topics of music and the brain, music and physics, overtones. So I'm introducing a little bit, kind of a light level of some of the actual science behind it. But if you are a musician and you're trained in this, you can get a little bit excited about that potential, and then you get to hear this wonderful band performing, and there's just some great performances. We have four great vocalists in addition to our great band. So we have Etienne Charles, as I mentioned. We have Letticy, kind of an R&B star. We have Aimee Nubiola, who's an incredible singer from Cuba. And then we have Malika Tyrolian from the island of Guadeloupe, who I think has just one of the most beautiful voices. And she sings one of my original songs called Now Is the Time, that talks about climate change.
Mm.
And it's got kind of a West African influence. So to your point about how we live in a globalized world, we live in this sort of postmodern, mentality that really anything can mix with anything.
Mm.
That combined with the incredible access that we all have through Spotify and Pandora or whatever, or YouTube, there's almost nothing that you can't find. I'm hoping as well that the show gets people a little bit excited about exploring how music that can combine with music that you don't know to
Mm.
create new, kind of like a new recipe.
Yeah, fusion music. And you just mentioned the word recipe. I mean, that's become so popular, fusion food too, and it makes sense. I mean, there's so many interesting aspects of food and music from all different cultures, and blending them all together brings out a completely new creation a lot of times.
And that's really, I mean, there's a lot of, talk, and obviously musicians are very much aware of genre. And I do talk about genre in the show as well, about part of what I call intraculture, the little subgroups within our culture, which is how we kind of get introduced to music. We hang out with a group of friends that are really into, progressive rock, or Irish folk songs or whatever, and that becomes part of our repertoire because it's part of our group. But music is obviously so capable of combining things, and so every genre, even genres that are like huge classic things like rock or jazz, they didn't just get born out of whole cloth. They are combinations of genres that preceded them.
Sure,
And even, jazz is a combination of both Western music, African music, Caribbean music.
sure.
So getting to know music from other cultures is just almost finding where music is going to go, right?
Yeah.
Because this gets combined with that to form, Zydeco or whatever, something new.
So where can listeners watch the program? Local PBS station?
Their local PBS station, if you are, the nice thing about PBS, I mean, it's being broadcast. It was initially released as part of the March Pledge. And we had over 1,100 airings, which is pretty amazing across the country as part of this pledge drive. It's going to continue to play in other pledge drives as well as many stations are airing it outside of the pledge drive. So you can check your local listings, or you can call your PBS station. I would encourage you to do that. Call your PBS station and say, when are you going to air, why you like it? But the other thing, if you are a PBS subscriber, you have access to what is called Passport. And that gives you the ability to watch it anytime,
Okay.
on the computer or on your tablet, or you can cast it to your television.
So
So
PBS's streaming platform.
that's right. Passport is PBS's streaming platform. And so you just type in why you like it, PBS, into Google, and you'll find it straight away. And if you're not a PBS subscriber, you should be, right? We should all support public television.
Well, really fascinating. I'm obviously a musician and I found it so engaging. It didn't feel at all like you were dumbing it down for people. Very engaging. And like we said, whether you're a musician, have musical background or not, and there's always things that you can dive deeper into. So really enjoyed it. I want to save just a little bit of time to hear more about did you pronounce it catch data?
What, catch? Yeah, we just call it catch. Yeah,
Catch. Okay.
catch.
Tell us about that because that sounds really fascinating.
Well, yeah. So this is a company that I co-founded back in 2019, and obviously my background, as you mentioned, is I'm a musician, but I got introduced into the tech world right when I was finishing up my PhD at Stanford, and this is around 2000, so a long time ago. Got conscripted to join this startup music technology company. It was called Savage Beast Technologies back then. It turned into Pandora Radio. So I'm the architect of the music genome, which is basically a taxonomy. It's a very rigorous way of analyzing music in a way that can be objective and scaled across lots of different content.
So are we talking
So
about things like tempo or speed, beat, rhythm?
every every dimension. So part of the goal of a genome, and so I've become a genome expert, working on genomes for 25
Yeah.
years. And what that is, I'm not talking about a biological genome. So any of the biologists out there, I realize that it's a metaphor. Um, if you really want to understand what's going on in a song, you really need to understand its musicology. So you need to find a way, just as we do as a musicologist. If I'm doing an analysis of a Beethoven symphony, I'm going to, follow it, and I'm going to, find a way to talk about how the form evolves, how the themes,
Yeah.
evolve, and the harmony changes, how rhythm is used, how the instrumentation is used. So these major parameters of music or musicology, the musical action, as well as what I call color, which is the different timbres. So you really want to try to be very specific. And so the genome finds a way through a taxonomy to make that where you can have the same set of variables analyzed across all different pieces of music,
Okay.
right? If we're analyzing in the rock realm, anything from the Sex Pistols to Pink Floyd and everything in the middle, everything in between, will be analyzed by the same variables, the same factors, the same genes, if you will.
So really a way to quantify all of that.
That's right. And it's not just saying, like, is there electric guitar? Yes or no. But if there is an electric guitar, to what degree does it impact what I call the identity and the experience of that song? So obviously we could go on too long to talk about what that it entails. But I did that for Pandora. And following that, I did some other genomes in some other areas like social impact, even wine. And then in 2019,
Well, and
together
just to
with
back up a minute, I'm guessing that this provides the infrastructure for the end user when they're listening to Pandora or some other platform
absolutely.
to hit the thumbs up. I like this song. And then that kind of influences the algorithm that they're fed after that, right?
Well, that is the basis of Pandora Radio. It is powered by the music genome. So
Okay.
back in the day, I was the head of the music operation at Pandora. I had a team of about 60 professional musicians that did gigs at night and that would come into work. This is, back before, you could work from home. They would put on headphones and listen to a 3 minute, song by, the Backstreet Boys or by Elvis Costello or
Uh-huh.
whatever. And they would go through this set of variables and they would rate
Wow.
the song across all of these hundreds of variables.
Oh, wow.
All of that information would go into a database, and the data scientists would kind of create, working with me and my team, would create the algorithm so that when you create a station, you create an Elvis Costello station, what are the other things that are the other songs that have similar variables,
Uh-huh.
so that when you say thumbs up or thumbs down, you're kind of teaching the algorithm, oh, I really like a beat, in an organ, right?
Sure.
So it's going to give me the Who or something. So it's gonna give you music that kind of corresponds to your taste.
Yeah. Or for a lot of years, what I would do is at night when I was just winding down, getting ready to kind of go to bed, I would just plug into Pandora Enya radio just to get
Mhm.
like Enya type music because that was sort of like taking a tranquilizer.
Absolutely, and it shows how important context is. That there's some music that, Enya is great if you're winding down in the day, but maybe not so great for a dinner party,
Sure.
right?
Might put you to sleep at the dinner
Yeah,
party.
that's right. So what Catch does, is basically takes that same approach, the same philosophy of a detailed analysis of content, what technically is called a content graph, and applies it to not only music, and we're doing music as well, but we started with film and television. And then we got in, as you mentioned, one of our clients that we work with is Meta, so we're working with social media content, but we're getting into other realms like fashion and food and games and so basically breaking down content. Now, why do you need to break down content? Because if you really want to understand preference, just like with musical taste, why does somebody, love a Nora versus, a real Pain? What are the elements, two Oscar and, contenders, one winner? What are those dimensions, the characters, the plot themes, the cinematography, the music, all these elements that go into what makes that film tick? And therefore, if you like this film but don't like this film, how can we understand your taste so that we can better, so that a company like, Paramount or whatever
Yeah.
can market, to you because it's going to touch on those things that resonate with you.
Well, then it also informs them in terms of where to invest in creating new music or purchasing the rights to certain films because, well, this seems to be pretty consistent with what our audience is looking for.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just the basic mission of Catch is to become the real experts at defining content, really whatever that content is, breaking it down into a genomic, in other words, a very systematic structure so that that data can be used for all kinds of purposing, for making recommendations, for doing, advertising or marketing, to figure out what content to buy or to promote, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's
Wow.
it's an exciting time. And now with AI, that's the big difference. So we're in a world now where what used to require a bunch of, in my genomic work, having a bunch of well-trained humans doing, their individual analysis and
Yeah.
then trying to make sure that it's all coordinated. Now we can actually use a trained AI model, informed by our process so that we can not just, code one film an hour, but, tens of thousands
Oh,
of
sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm just picturing these people back when you were doing the genome project at Pandora, these musicians coming in, sitting down, putting the headphones on, listening to a 3-minute song. And if it was a 3-minute song, about how long would it take for them to sort of rate all these hundreds of metrics that they're looking for?
It's a great question. So that was obviously always a concern. It was a bit crazy that we were trying to do this. It would take around 15 minutes
Okay.
by a well-trained analyst to analyze a 3-minute song, which
Which
is,
is pretty
not
quick,
bad.
actually.
it is pretty quick, but you think about that, there are, like like 200 million songs. So
Yeah. Yeah, and they're doing all of this manually. So yeah, it's fascinating. And I can
yeah.
totally see how AI would just exponentially speed up this process.
And just to say, I was always the one, because as a musicologist, or as as a genome architect, I was always very skeptical of any kind of non-human ability to really make, a proper interpretation. Like, what kind of harmony is this? What kind of rhythm is this? What is the meter? How does the instrumentation, how can it be defined? Back in, the early Pandora days, there were like machine listening technologies out there, but they were always horrible.
Huh.
And so I just said, no, 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 no. And even with Catch, we started in 2019, before the AI revolution. We had experts in film and television, highly trained, rating and watching a film and then going through it. So that would take, sometimes to code a 2-hour film would take 3 hours.
Oh, I'm sure.
So very labor intensive. And I saw some early versions of an AI version of how we could use our approach. And initially, like in 2021 or whatever, yeah, no, it's not good. And then we have some experts in AI. One of our co-founders, Jacob Clifton, just kept tinkering and tinkering and tinkering. And it got to be the point that I said, oh my God, it is so good. And so now I am
The skeptic was
more
converted.
skep- the skeptic is now the evangelist. And it just coincides, I decided when the AI revolution, I'm not a techie, I'm not an engineer, couldn't program my way out of a paper bag, but I made it a mission to really understand AI as much as I could, including music AI. And, that's a huge topic, and, happy to talk about it, but it's, we are living in an AI world, whether we are sometimes happy about it or not. And so how do we navigate that?
Yeah. Well, and whether we recognize it or not, some people point to very specific applications of AI and can get sort of irate about AI doing this or that or taking over jobs or whatever. And then people point out we have been using AI for lots of years when you think of MapQuest and you know, and it is so convenient. I mean, I've gotten to the point where if I'm online shopping and I'm not getting pop-up examples of compliment, maybe you should consider this product if you like that one. Or, I'm shopping for music and it's like, well, if you like this, consider that. And if I don't get that, I'm kind of like, come on, like give me some ideas here. Like,
Right.
you want me to research
Don't
this
make
on
me
my
work too
own?
hard, right? Yeah.
Or you go to
Right.
Amazon and it's like you plug in a coffee grinder and it gives you 5 different products at different price points with different ratings. And if you like this, you should consider that. And it's really nice, I gotta say.
Well, I mean, it's getting more and more integrated. And obviously, with ChatGPT, we all have the capability of, not just having assistants writing an email or a term paper or whatever, or getting a summary of, crime and punishment, but you just, all kinds of practical things as well. And I think increasingly it will become integrated. It already is. Like, if you do a Google search, I mean, chances are you're going to get a response from Gemini, not just,
Sure.
here's eight websites to go explore.
Yeah,
It's going to start by giving you kind of a condensed answer. But obviously, when it comes to the arts, there's a lot of consternation about what is it going to do to the arts. Is it going to, like, put
sure,
musicians out of work?
sure.
I mean, that's what you hear. Obviously there's a lot of anger, even, that among musicians that have, these big tech companies like Google or Meta, whatever, using label, established artists, their content to kind of train their model. How are they getting compensated?
Right. And
Um,
recognition, transparency, yeah, payment.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a tricky thing, but
Right.
technology always has, a combination of taking jobs away, but then introducing a whole bunch of new jobs,
Exactly.
right? So yeah, but it's definitely a big transformation. This is, like, we're still in the very early stages. So 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's going to be very interesting to see where things are with, generative music. That's one of the things I'm working on with Google, is to help
Mhm.
improve, the capability of these models to generate music. And is that a betrayal of me as a composer to put, people out of work? And I say, absolutely not. There's never not going to be a need for real humans to write music.
Sure.
No machine is going to be able to do everything. Nobody's going to want to see a concert with a bunch of computers on stage.
Sure.
So, but we would be putting our heads in the sand if we don't think that music AI or any other kind of AI is going to keep on improving. And yes, there are going to be jobs that get lost. As the old expression, goes, or as I say, AI won't take your job, but somebody who knows how to do AI will.
Sure.
So it's really incumbent on all of us, I think, to become as familiar with it as we can.
Definitely. Well, very fascinating topic and fascinating frontier. And the fact that you were started on this so much earlier. I mean, 2019 with Catch, and then even well before that with the Pandora Genome Project. You've really been at the forefront of this new frontier for a long time. Well, I'll for sure include lots of links in the show notes. Listeners, check out Why You Like It, Decoding Musical Taste. Really fun, interactive, fascinating show. Really great educational potential for all of you out there like me who are music educators and really get into that kind of stuff. Nolan, as you know, I ask all my guests to close out our conversation with a musical ending, a coda, by sharing a song or story about a moment that music enhanced your life. Do you have a song or story that you can share with us today in closing?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say this is necessarily a song that is or music that has enhanced my life, but it's actually apropos when I got your invitation to think about a coda, and something that was maybe on YouTube. I've got a lot of things on there, but the thing that came to my mind is an actual AI human collaboration that I put together. And this was quite some time ago, and we're starting to work, me and a collaborator who does a lot of the video stuff. His name is Malcolm McDuffie, and he's very talented. Uh, Starting to work on a second version. My idea was this: to create a setting where I could actually compose to a sort of a video. So I came up with the idea of like asking AI or ChatGPT to create a story, almost like a children's fable. It did that. And then I used AI to do a voiceover. It did that. Then I had AI create images that would accompany this, and then it did that. And then we had AI do turn some of these images into video, and it's called the wisdom of the pond. Now again, some people may say, you're putting voiceover people out of work. Nobody is making any money on this. So for PBS, I promise you, I hired we hired real voiceover people. But I did all this so I could have an excuse to have this story, this children's story about this boy who and his faithful dog, who kind of have this life lesson. They go to a pond and they look for this wise old frog. And instead, what they discover is that nature is kind of beautiful and gives you lots of bounty. Again, it's this 3-minute thing. And then I had the ability to compose a score to it. And so that was the exercise. So it's called The Wisdom of the Pond. And so my coda is for people so for me, it was a joyful thing to write the music, to try to match they like doing a film score, trying to match the emotion of the story and the flow of the narrative. It's just solo piano. You can actually see me playing it on the bottom of the YouTube video. Anyway, I hope people like it. So that's version 1, and so you can stay tuned for the next. It's called the Adventures of Carson and Louie. So Carson is the boy and Louie is the dog, and so we'll have to see what they're up to next. But it'll be AI that creates the story.
In the sleepy village of Maplewood, where the trees are as old as the stories whispered under their branches, young Carson, accompanied by his ever-vigilant spaniel, Louis, sets off on his bicycle one bright Saturday morning. Their mission was simple: to capture the legendary giant frog of Willow Pond, a creature rumoured to be as big as a bread box and as wise as the oldest oak. Carson, equipped with nothing but
And that is a little bit of the wisdom of the pond. You can listen to the full 3-minute YouTube video in the show notes. Thank you so much to Dr. Gasser for joining us today, for putting this interactive PBS special out into the world, and for the fascinating information on the art and science of musical taste and how AI plays into the equation. As always, there are lots of links in the show notes. You'll also find a transcript of this conversation and links to related episodes you may enjoy, including my first conversation with Nolan about his book, Why You Like It, The Science and Culture of Musical Taste, an episode on what AI means for the world of music, and a guest using AI in innovative ways to bridge the past and future of music. All Enhanced Life with Music episodes are evergreen, so check out the back catalog for more ways that music can make your life better. If there's a topic or a guest that you would like to hear featured on the show, or if you have a question for me that you'd like to hear answered on the show, please let me know. You can always connect with me on email, mindy@mpetersonmusic.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, or LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing the show. Until next time, may your life be enhanced with music.